Hello, I'm Anthony Renteria, and this is A Lonely Critic, where I am lonely because I'm a critic. So today, I just got out of my screening for The French Dispatch. Finally! I've been trying to watch this movie for what feels like years. In reality, it's been like months. But thanks to Sidewalk Cinema, so I just want to give a quick shout out to them for having the film. Now, having seen The French Dispatch, I can't imagine living in a world where I hadn't seen this film in cinemas. I would not be who I am right now at this very second. So I thank them for that, for a life-changing experience, as a lot of the films by my favorite filmmakers are to me. This was without a doubt one of those. So I got out of the theater. I texted one of my closest friends, literally a brother from another mother, Williams. I immediately texted him that this is probably the most beautiful visual work I have ever seen in my life. Like, just bar none, it is a cinematic masterpiece. Like, just on a purely visual cinematography, just cinematic language, it's staggering. It's just absolutely freaking staggering. And it's insanity that people are saying this phrase as a complaint, like as a negative. This is the most Wes Anderson film ever. And like it's a bad thing. You know, everyone's been kind of saying this is a lower tier Wes Anderson because it was his most Wes Anderson. And for some reason I was like, yeah, like maybe he crossed the boundary and he became too Wes Anderson. I don't think you can become too Wes Anderson. Like, it is a never-ending joy of cinematic beauty. It'd be like saying, like, you know what, Picasso, he went too Picasso. He went too Picasso in this painting right here. He just crossed the Picasso line into too much Picasso. What is he doing? What is he doing? No, that's too Picasso, man. Chill out. But you know, when I heard those reports and I listened to the people for a couple days, for a brief moment, I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't have to watch this one in theaters. Even though ever since I've discovered Wes Anderson, I've made it a point in my life to watch all his films in cinema. Because I feel like this is a rarity. We get to live in a world where, you know, he exists and he is creating his art. You know, I would say this about a lot of artists. You know, like even Tarantino, or Nolan, or you know, just all the auteurs. You know, to whatever auteur you enjoy. You know, that's beauty in itself. Being able to live amongst people that you love. Because I know, for me, and I know probably for a lot of others, you know, like sometimes you find a creator and they have passed and you miss the joy of feeling what it's like to get their new work. And we only get to experience that with the creators that we admire during that period that we're alive and that they're alive. You know, that's a very short window. I don't know. I need to watch all of Wes Anderson films again. And that's something I love. Like that feeling when you watch someone's new film and then you're like, wait, is that their best film? So the experience that I had in this cinema was a revelation to me. I mean, this is probably the best single first viewing of a Wes Anderson film I've ever had in my life. And bear in mind, I think I've given all his films either 9 out of 10s or 10 out of 10s that I've seen. So this is like, I mean, I'm sure if I had to, you know, compile all the ratings of his films compared to all the other filmmakers I've seen, I think he would be number one. Just average. His hit ratio is just through the roof. But let's get into a little deeper aspect of the film. So what is The French Dispatch about? Because I feel like that's one issue that I feel like people are not explaining well enough. And again, no spoilers, but you know, everyone is just saying it's an anthology piece. And I think that's kind of diminishing of what it truly is. It is a film about, it is literally a visual representation, a visual experience of the final issue of this fake newspaper journal is written in France for an American audience. But all the stories take place in France. And it's about this journal. You know, like a lot of people say it's like inspired by the New Yorker or other journals similar to that. I am not in tune with that whole world or that art form or that sort of journalism, to be honest. Like I've never read the New Yorker. I've never read any journals like that or like the film that I just experienced. And I think that's the thing, like when someone says it's just 3 short films slapped together and, you know, it's a lesser Wes Anderson. Like, no, it is a visual representation of this magazine. This magazine that was, you know, that had these journalists writing stories about capturing life. And I think that's what the film is truly about. And more so than that, it's about writers. And it's about the artistic, like the creator's curse. It's like that desire to write something, to follow a story, to follow a lead, to tell someone else's story, to tell something, to share, to communicate. And I think that's what this film is about. And I think it's beautiful, and it's beautifully captured. Like, this is the most emotional I've ever felt in a Wes Anderson film. The first story that takes place, the final story that takes place, even the middle story. And that's the thing, like, everyone is, like, seeing them as three separate pieces. And they're saying, like, the first one's good, the second one's bad, the third one's good. I mean, it really frustrates me and it angers me because it's like, like I'm writing a short story collection that is super massive. It's a super massive black hole. And it's huge and it's large and it's never going to get finished and it will never see the light of day and I will die before anyone reads it. But, me writing that piece, if it were to ever see the light of day, I see them all as one whole, even though, like, now, currently, I'm thinking about just separating them because I'm desperate. But in the end, I think, like, even a short story collection or an anthology piece or whatever, like, they should all be kind of reviewed in unison in a way, is what I think. But more importantly, this is a journal. This is an issue of a journal. And all these stories, though they are about individual characters and individual moments, it is still a story of a whole. It is still a story of the city. It is still a story of the lives. It is still a story of what this editor has approved to be in this issue. And I think that's an element that a lot of people are just not talking about and no one really cares about. Because I hear a lot of complaints that it's just not an emotional story, but I think this is, like, experiences things differently. I mean, that's obvious, but it's like, film to me is different than a film to you, and I think for me, this is like one of the very rare films that feels completely in tune with the things that I'm passionate about, that I care about, and that I love. I don't know how many stories I have about writers or creators or artists or filmmakers or photographers or game developers, like that is just a passion, because I think that is like the most painful thing. I mean, that is the most painful thing in my life, is trying to be a creative and trying to create. And I think this film captures a lot of that through these whimsical stories, but they're all heartfelt and they're all very touching, and to me they were deep because there was a reality to it. It almost felt like Wes Anderson speaking to me in disguise, and that is what I aspire to do through my writings. Like, I want it to feel almost like an eerie, wait, is this him? Is this him talking, or is this just a story he manufactured? And I wonder that. Sometimes I sit down to write something and, like, I don't plan what I write. Whatever comes out, comes out. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that me? Is that me feeling that? Is that me wanting that? Is that me fearing that? Is that me hoping for that? Is that me wishing that would happen or not happen? And I don't know, but I love that feeling. And I feel like there's certain moments in this film where I felt like, maybe I felt a tinge of, I feel like Wes Anderson's trying to say something. Like, maybe he is very lonely. Maybe he is very sad. Maybe he feels like, this is all I can make, and I'm trying to make my best of it, and this is all I get. And then at the end, I die, and then that's it. You have your journal. You have your issue. And I think that kind of covers the narrative stuff that I want to talk about in the film. I don't want to go into deep spoilers. The other thing I wanted to talk about is obviously the performances. Wes Anderson just has an eclectic cast of characters, of actors, of character actors. There's all the obvious ones that are returning. I mean, there's so many to name. And there's a lot of surprises too. Or not even surprises, but they just kind of show up. I'm like, whoa, he's never been in a Wes Anderson film. Or, oh, there she is. Or, oh, there he is. So I don't want to, like, go through the credits, because I think it was a nice experience just seeing how they flowed into the narratives. One other thing I wanted to mention is the score. I heard a lot, again, with the detractors of this film. A lot of people were saying, like, this is Alexander Desplat's, lesser score. It's kind of weak. He's not really trying, piddling along or whatever. I love this score. Like, this is probably my favorite Wes Anderson movie score, bar none. And it feels fun, and it feels joyful, and it feels hopeful, and it feels bright, and it feels like minimal in such an interesting way. It feels like a kid playing. Like it feels like a composer, instead of aiming for some perfect orchestra soundscape, it is like single instruments plucking, and it is so strange hearing that. Like I just imagine here, like watching this film right after Dune or something, where Dune is just like this hugely massive, like not orchestra, but amalgamation of sounds, and then this is like a little guitar, like ding 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 ding, like whatever. And that like high pitch kind of single instrument, almost like folky, but it just had such a eclectic mix of sounds and instruments that were very like I don't even know how to explain it, but it was just fun, and it felt like a composer just having a great time and like trying to feed off the energy of the visuals, and they all match perfectly. All the sequences just felt like just little vignettes of the combination of a perfect visual and then a perfect soundscape. So much so that I'm like, wow, I think this is my new favorite score. And I know I just said that with like, I said that with Spencer, and then I said that with Dune. But this is the time of the year where all the like good films come out, like all the big like Oscar potential nominees and all the indie flicks where all the studios are trying to like push these for awards contention. So this is the time period. I'm not a maniac. I'm not a psychopath. But right now, in the heat of this moment, I think Alexander Desplat's score is the score of the year. I don't know. It's going to be like every week. The next score is going to... Oh my god, this is the score of the year. This is the score. That is the... So it's going to be interesting how this year ends up. Not many other films that I'm thinking could top this. I don't know, but this score is just so fun. Like, I was listening to it on the drive, and it surprisingly works very well. The Spencer score just released, and it doesn't play as well outside of the film. Like, in the film, it is a fantastic experience. There's something to say about a score that works in film, and it works individually. I think that is just a mind-blowing example of a good composition to where it can be listened to independently of the film. But again, the purpose of a film score is to support the film. So like I'm not saying that as a knock, but it's just an added benefit. And so far this score is just like a joyful blast to listen to because of how bright and happy it is, which is like unlike me to like something that bright and happy. Usually I like the dark depressive stuff. So this is but it's so put together. Like I don't know, all the themes, like I can immediately imagine the stories that were being told, and I can immediately imagine the cast of characters that he created through the sound and the soundscape. So Alexander Desplat, amazing score. The other thing I want to talk about, because I'm already kind of getting long in this review, obviously the costume designs, the set designs, the hair and makeup, the production design, the art design. I mean, it is a craft marvel. It is shocking the amount of detail displayed in this film. Like every single frame is just bleeds with creativity and beauty and color and joy and passion. Like you can just tell he's in love with France and French culture, and it's not, this isn't an exact representation of France. Just like I don't think, and I think Isle of Dogs got a lot of flack and a lot of heat for its representation of this fictional Japanese country, and well, not country, but like a Japanese state. It was a imaginary version of Japan. And I think Wes Anderson did that again with like the Grand Budapest Hotel. Like it was a fringe, weird refracted version of Europe that he imagined. And I think this is specifically tackling his obsession and love with France. And it's obviously not representative of France, but I think what he's doing here, which I find so beautiful and so brave and courageous, it's a reflection of the feelings of France, and I think that's something completely unique and different, and I think that's beautiful, and I love it. Like it's not a one for one of this is what France is like, but this is what France feels like through his imagination. And I think as a foreigner, as he is experiencing, being from America, being from Texas, moving to a foreign country like France, or it's almost like this daydream folktale fantasy, because you're not from there and things feel different, even though like the reality is what it is, but it feels unique and it feels bigger than life. And I mean, I haven't traveled to another country per se, but I have traveled a little bit thanks to the military, most of it in the country. I traveled to like Hawaii. Well, one of the standouts for me was San Francisco, and exploring the city in San Francisco, and I thought it would be a city I wouldn't like, because I don't like big cities, but for some reason when I was there, and this was a while back, years ago, it just felt like such an artistic place. Maybe it was just the venues that I discovered there and the places I went, but I felt that emotional energy, and I think that's what he's capturing. You know, like if I were to make a film about my experience in San Francisco, people would be like, "That's not what San Francisco's like. San Francisco has blah 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 blah." You know, it's about the feeling that I had. You know, it's like when someone makes a film about their home city. It's not a documentary of the home city. It's the feelings. You know, I think I love how he's doing this. You know, and even with just the French culture and the French nation, he's doing that with this journal. You know, it's not the accuracy or the fact. It is the feeling of reading these stories that inspire imagination and creativity and hope. And yeah, and I think that's beautiful. Like, it's, to me, the most beautiful Wes Anderson film. Like, it just feels amazing. Like, I can't wait to rewatch this. But I guess that brings me to the cinematography, which I kind of wanted to leave at the end. I mean, I think this is one of the most brilliant executions of the visual form in cinema that I've ever seen in my life. The way he transitions from black and white to color. Like, can we just stop to think about that for a second? The way he transitions from like black and white to color in this film, and he punctuates moments with color, and he punctuates moments with black and white, and the choices between when to show which, how to show which, the visual quality of each and either. I mean, the visual quality in between stories that are being told, and even the way it's composed changes. There's one image where it's black and white, and then it immediately shifts to like a couple seconds of color, and you see the most striking color, and it's just that immediate like realization of like, wow, the fact that we can see in color is so beautiful. Like, and this is like a very external kind of thought, and that's what I love about this film, is it made me think about like life and like how I see things, like how I think about creating and creativity. Like, it made me think about those things through the form that it was made. I mean, this is like bar none the best use of color and black and white that I've ever seen. Like I just said, like it's just, I'm thinking about all the moments, and he does it repeatedly, numerous times, multiple times throughout the film, having that, the flick from black and white to color, black and white to color, color, black and white, having certain moments, and it's just wonderful. And man, like, just his framing and his compositions are out of this world. And I thought, like, all right, he's not going to get any better than, you know, Grand Budapest Hotel. Like, I thought that was his maximum premium visual flair. But this film is, like, relentless in symmetry and perfected shots. But then also shots that, like, for me, magnified certain characters' emotions. There's one shot where it's, like, I don't know, like maybe it was a little like more centered on one character, but it was like maybe inches of the screen. And I'm talking about inches in the theater size of the screen. That the focus was different, and he would still cut in between two characters that were laying by each other, and it was just like an inch that was cutting. But it was such an impactful cut to me. I was like, oh my, like the craft, the freaking craft. It's mind numbing. It's mind numbing. Like, I'm just like running through so many scenes and segments, and the editing of the film, I don't even know what to say. Like, I think I would have to rewatch it 4 more times to even talk about the craft of it. I think there is a huge lack of appreciation of the actual technical craft that goes into making even 10 seconds of something. You know, it is insane to see what Wes Anderson has created in all his films. Like, his entire filmography, to me, is like a mind-numbing expression of pure creativity and artistic mastery of the cinematic form. And I think the greatest like flaw is that he just happens to not be, you know, making films like Alfred Hitchcock, or, you know, films like Stanley Kubrick. You know, like, he's not making the dramas, he's not making, you know, the hard genre types films. He's not making like serious work that is pushing, you know, existential questions or whatever. But I truly think that if Wes Anderson was that kind of filmmaker, like he was making the 2001 Space Odysseys or whatever, Godfathers, or like if he was that, if that was his voice, was a more dramatic, dark voice, there is not a doubt in my mind that he would be renowned as one of the greatest visualists of all time and one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, like all time. And I think just because he has this quirky style and this like sense of humor and this like perfected aesthetic and beauty, and it's just his voice happens to be bright and almost cheerful and hopeful and comedic and self-aware, and because of that he is not seen. I don't think, like, I think a lot of people love Wes Anderson and he is respected, but I think the amount of, like, he is so undervalued. I mean, there was moments in this film, and I've seen the behind the scenes of the Grand Budapest Hotel. You know, there's this whole sequence in the Grand Budapest Hotel where the characters are on a train and the train gets stopped by police officers and they have to like, it's like immigration or something. The point is, Wes Anderson is working under such strict limitations financially because he is not financially bankable. You know, he's not like his contemporaries. Like, let's say even like Denis Villeneuve. Like, he cannot. I don't know. I don't have the numbers of what Wes Anderson budgets are, but I think Dune costed more than all of Wes Anderson films put together, and you know that makes me so sad that we live in a world with such a visionary creator and he is not. He's just not appreciated, and I think a lot of that just comes to his taste, and I think people can't get over that, or they're like, oh, it's Wes Anderson, you know, he centers the frame, blah blah blah, like he wears nice clothes or whatever. But it's like he is still like just a landmark creator in cinema, like, and I will die by that. That's all I gotta say. This is so far the best experience I've had in cinemas all year. I was smiling the whole time. And the other crazy thing is I don't think I've laughed this much in a Wes Anderson film. Like, I don't know what it was. Like, maybe I was just in the right mood, or maybe I was just so desperate to watch this. This was like the funniest Wes Anderson film to me. I was smiling. My mouth started to hurt because I was smiling so much in the movie. That's insane. That's insane. I mean, I don't smile much, so I don't think, maybe like 20 minutes of smiling is like pretty painful for me. But yeah, it was a great time. So with all that being said, I think I'm going to close out this conversation. It's gone on for 49 minutes. I don't even know how I'm going to edit this. I don't know how I'm going to edit any of my videos. I'm like 4 videos behind. I don't know what I'm doing. All right. I don't know. But I love this film. If you get a chance to watch this film in theaters, do it. If you've lost that opportunity, you know, rent it, buy it, do whatever you got to do, but please watch it. It is the highest of recommendations. I do think if you are just an average viewer, I don't think you will appreciate a lot of it if you're not interested in, you know, filmmaking, the art of that. I mean, there's going to be people who don't like it because it's too whimsical or quirky, or, I mean, there's people in my auditorium, you know, they just didn't get it. And I'm like, what is there to get? It's fucking art, dude. So, I mean, I don't think anyone can watch this film and not think it's a visual masterpiece, but anyways, I think that concludes my long, winding discussion of The French Dispatch, immediate review and impressions, reactions, whatever I call it. So I guess you're wondering, what is my rating? What is my current rating? It's a 10 out of 10. This is a 10 out of 10. It's a masterpiece. It's brilliant. I want to say, alright, I'm going to say it. Just like I said, Alexander Desplat's score is my favorite score of the year. This is my new favorite film of the year. Screw it. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This is what I've wanted Wes Anderson to make for the longest time, because I am a huge fan of stories about creators and artists and creation. The idea of capturing that. And I think it did. This is the Wes Anderson film I have dreamed of. So for that reason, 10 out of 10, my favorite film so far of the year. Who knows what the next couple films will bring for the rest of the year and into the holiday season and early next year, because, you know, all the Oscar films come out, but then they're not everywhere. But yeah, I loved it. I loved it. That's all I gotta say. Hope you enjoyed this video. It's very long. Leave a like. And tell me what you think about Wes Anderson. Am I wrong? Tell me, am I wrong? Let's have an educated argument on why you believe Wes Anderson is the greatest filmmaker alive or not. And I'm saying purely objectively. Like, I just think objectively he is a better craftsman than anyone else doing it. And I mean, is that a big statement? I don't know. I think he is. Like, I don't know. I don't know who else creates such perfect shots. I don't know. So leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Subscribe. Do whatever. I gotta go to bed. And tomorrow's like my worst day at work, so It's horrible. That is one thing that I guess I didn't speak about in the review, is that even though this film was very hopeful and joyful and filled me with happiness, I also felt an intense despair, an intense sadness that I haven't really created anything. And every time I watch a film that is like this great, I think like, wow, will I ever get to do something like that? Or like, will I ever get to create anything? Will I ever create anything? Will I ever finish anything? And that is a deep sadness, and that is a deep struggle, and it is a horrifying fear. And yeah, and I mean, it's too deep to get into in this video because it's already 60 minutes long, but you know, it's like, I don't know. Forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. And yeah, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.